Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jamie Long, and I am with the Empowered Living Club. This has been a series of discussions with industry experts, and we've had it for now the last 6-8 months. Today we have Jill. I'm going to get to that slide in a moment. The disclaimer is, of course, this is education. This is not intended to be actionable advice that anybody is entitled to rely upon. As I said, it's Empowered Living Club. Empowered Living Club is a project of GolderCare Solutions and the Passionate Patient Advocate. We provide a deeper level of education on a number of topics related to the aging process. I am an expert as much as, to the extent that I am on aging in place. I've done a lot of these things for a long time, but the real expert here today on the topic at hand is Jill, and far more than I'm really able to provide. I may be chirping in from time to time, either asking questions or adding a perspective or an insight or something, but Jill is going to be taking this over very shortly. She is Dr. Jill Bjerke. She is, as you can see, a bachelor's in science and a doctorate of chiropractic. She has served as a chiropractor. She's also, for our purposes today, one of her many specialties is she's a certified aging in place specialist. Her organization is Home Transition Solutions Group and Silver Space's Home Safety Assessment. I want to introduce this slide, and then I want to turn it over to Jill, and that is this. I think one of the main messages that Jill will be giving us is that the main danger, or one of the main safety concerns as we age in place at home, is falls and fall risks. Trying to minimize those, it's the leading cause of a lot of mischief. So with that, I'm going to say, welcome, Jill. Thank you for being with us. We are eager to hear what you have to say. And go ahead, please.
Thank you, Jamie. Hello, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. Jamie and I have known each other for some time, so I'm thrilled to be able to share this incredibly important information with you. So as GolderCare says, master the challenge of aging together. So let me share some suggestions on what creating a safe and secure home looks like as we get older. Remember, our lives change, our homes don't. Many of us have lived in our homes for so long that we don't realize that there may be risks around us, and there may be options that we can take advantage of to reduce those risks. Some of the hallmarks of an age-friendly home would be a zero threshold entry, which means there's no steps to get in or out of your house. Another might be having the bathroom, bedroom, and kitchen all on the same floor. So let's dive a little deeper. In this first slide, I show you some safety devices. Obviously, you would think that the smoke detector, that's a common one. What's not common is that for people who wear hearing aids, they need to be able to hear this sound everywhere in the home. So it's a good idea to test it, take the hearing aids out, see if you can hear them in every part of the home. The other part is a weather radio. Oftentimes we're given very little time to go to a safe space. And as we get older, it becomes harder to move more quickly. So if you plan ahead and know where that safe space is, when an alert comes across, you can get there more quickly and hopefully more safely. And you would not believe the number of homes I have been in who do not have a fire extinguisher. And that is so important, both in the kitchen, in the basement, in the garage, wherever you need to access it quickly. Next slide, please. So here are some trip and fall hazards. Some may be common. The throw rug. Everybody has throw rugs, but they are a major trip and fall hazard. My daughter broke her foot very badly last fall, tripping over a rug next to her bed. If they're not taped down, they should be removed. And then here's an example of frayed carpeting. Again, another trip and fall hazard. And then, of course, the cords, sometimes we have to string them across the room. If we want to connect, we have to charge our phone, some other electrical device. But again, this is a terrible trip and fall hazard. When you trip and fall, and if you break a hip, you may not be able to go home. That's a severe injury. So the whole idea here is, how do I make our home safer as we grow older? Next slide, please. On the left, you see an obvious, way too many things in that room. This is actually a client's home. They can't navigate around it simply by walking. But if this person had a walker, maybe they went to the hospital and they came home and were discharged with a walker. All of a sudden, this becomes a huge issue. So navigating safe paths has to be a primary concern to keeping us from falling, to keeping us from safe, being able to move about the house easily. On the right, you'll see there are clearer paths, easier ways to get around the kitchen. More people can be in that kitchen at one time. So that kind of is an example of what a clearer path is. Next slide, please.
Jill, this is Jamie. On the last slide before this one we just did, it says one solution for electrical cords, and it looks to be that you're taping them down or something like that. Is that what that's about?
Yes, there are all kinds of things that are now available that you can use to not only tape down, but there's actually one that almost disappears into the floor. And I'm sorry, that's the one that's in the right corner there. That's an example of something that can be used that tapes down so that you're reducing that trip and fall hazard. Thank you for pointing that out. I missed that slide. Okay, grab bars. First thing I'm told is, I don't want a grab bar because it makes me look old. That might have been true a while ago, but now they are beautiful. And I'm showing you some very decorative ones. These are some options. Don't shy away from a grab bar if you think it will keep you safe. Getting in and out of the tub, maybe even getting in and out of your house or coming up your stairs, wherever you think you may need some stability. There are grab bars that are just gorgeous in all kinds of finishes, colors. Don't shy away from safety because you think this might not look good. The scald protector is very, very good if you have diabetic neuropathy, if you have someone with dementia, or maybe even a child in the home. It screws right on to the end of the faucet and it shuts off when it reaches a certain temperature and comes back on when that temperature has gone down. Next slide, please.
Jill, a question on the towel rack on this one.
Yes.
Is this designed that it's strong enough to be a grab bar, but also serves as a towel rack, whereas our normal towel racks are not strong enough to be grab bars?
The word strong has to do with how it is attached to the wall, and it should be done professionally, not by us, because they need to go either on the 2x4s behind the wall. They need to be very, very securely attached. So I always recommend to people, please have a professional install your grab bar. They know how to do it safely, especially if you're putting a lot of body weight on that, if you're pulling, if you're pushing. I really highly recommend people hiring a professional to do this.
That I concur. So as I understand it, we've got three pictures of grab bars here. The grab bars alone, we've got the tub faucet that's surrounded by a grab bar, and we've got the towel rack that is actually suspended from a grab bar. Is that what we're seeing here?
Yes, they can be multi-purpose.
Cool. Yeah.
It just depends on where you're going to put it and what the use is. This is an example, of a basic aging in place bathroom. You will notice there's a 0-step entry coming into the room. There are no throw rugs, they've been removed. There are lever type faucets, and I'll give you a better example of that. But remember, as we get older, our joints don't work as well. So if we're trying to turn faucets think of putting a tennis ball in your hand and trying to turn a faucet. That's what it's like when you have arthritis. And that is one of the reasons we recommend the lever type faucet. You'll also know that the open it cabin screw under the sink, if you have a wheelchair person, they are then can access to the sink. The only thing that this picture does not show, which is disappointing, is that the hot and cold pipes are not insulated. So that is something that I would have changed. Those mirrors tilt. So if you have a seated user or you have people in the home who are of two different heights, that helps to tilt. And then you will also notice that there are three sources of light, which is what we recommend. The ambient light, which is natural, task lighting, that type of thing that comes in the door. It's so much easier to see when you have three different types of light illuminating your room. The floor, if the floor were ceramic, I would tell people to paint a slip resistant coating on it to reduce slip and fall injuries. So again, look at the types of floors that you have in your house and determine if they are causing a risk to your safety. Next slide, please.
Can you elaborate just a little bit more on that three sources of light? Is
Okay.
it ambient outside light, and then there's like a top light in the bathroom, and then a specific light over the sink?
Right. Natural light would be outside.
Okay.
Ambient would be the ones over the mirror, or say you have a sconce or you have a floor lamp.
Okay.
That would be more ambient light that's spread out.
That's the ceiling. Could be a ceiling fixture too.
Could be, yes.
Okay.
Could
And then
be.
what's the third one?
The third is task.
Task. What's the task?
The task is, say you're reading the newspaper, you need a brighter light to shine directly on whatever it is you are looking at. If you're at your desk and you've got papers on your desk, you should have a light that is task enabled, which means it's looking at right at what you're looking at.
Okay. Is there task lighting in this picture?
Not in this particular picture, no.
Okay, so you would count those fixtures above the mirrors as part of the ambient lighting rather than the
Correct.
task lighting.
Correct.
Okay, I get it.
So, excuse me. There are options. Now remember, our lives change, our homes don't. Say, for instance, you can't reach as high as you used to. You can't bend over as far as you used to. Maybe you can't get up off the floor without help. Maybe getting on and off a toilet seems to be a little bit of an issue because the toilet is too low. Older homes may have lower toilets. There are higher toilets available, which makes it so much safer and so much easier to get on and off. So there are options to your home to help you create a safe and secure environment. This one is, I love because it puts in a corner space which oftentimes is unused, or you can't reach to the back of that corner. This little thing pivots around so that that person can reach every single thing on that rack. And it is a wonderful solution for certain areas of a kitchen, or maybe even in an office, even in a bathroom, somewhere where the distance between where that woman's waist is and the back of that counter is significant, and she might not be able to reach back there. So this, again, is an option. Go ahead. Thank you. This one shows the striking color differentiation between the floor and the wall. Why is this important? Because as we age, our peripheral vision changes, which means it's harder for us to see the things that are on the outside here. And by putting the color differentiation between the floor and the wall, it gives your brain the ability to perceive where you are in that space. That can be very, very important when you're moving through rooms. So no matter what the surface is, whether it's a light wall and a dark floor, or a dark wall and a light floor, the contrast helps you navigate through that room as your peripheral vision changes. Excuse me. The lighting in this room is excellent. The problem, doorknob. It would have been better if there were a lever handle. Again, remember having the tennis ball in your hand. it can be very difficult to navigate doorknobs. And there's no nightlight here. So if this person were navigating this hall room at night, hopefully there would be a switch, but it would be so much better if they had a nightlight to illuminate it, a motion sensor nightlight as they moved through that space. This is another thing that a lot of people don't think about. Older stoves often have controls at the back of the appliance. And if that's a gas stove, that could mean that your bathrobe or some other piece of clothing could catch fire as you were reaching towards the back of the appliance for the controls. So we advise, try and find an appliance that has those controls in the front, so you are not reaching over those hot surfaces. This particular one has a see-through door, so you can see what is going on inside without having to open that door and get a blast of heat in your face. And then you will notice it has what we call a C or D handle. The appliance has a C handle in the shape of a C. I'm a chiropractor, so I'm always looking for things that I call zero joint motion, which means I don't have to bend and flex my joints. So the C and the D handle on the cabinet, that is what we prefer, rather than the doorknob. Again, we're looking for what's the safest way for our body to move around this space.
Oh, can you point out, so the D handle, is that the one to the right of the stove that's
Correct.
kind of like a square D?
Right.
That's the
cabinet.
handle on the cabinet?
Right. That's
Okay.
called a D or D style, if you want to put it that way.
Okay, and so it's easier to grasp and you can get full leverage on it without having to turn
Most
it
of the
and all
time,
that.
you can just put your hand behind it and pull towards you. But again, it's easier than a door knob or a type of knobby handle.
Yeah.
There are so many different styles out there now, again, like the grab bars,
Right.
that it really is personal choice.
Right.
But you also, as you want to make that choice, you want to make sure you're making the right choice, the safe choice. It may be beautiful, but maybe it's not the right choice for
Right.
wherever it is you intend on putting that knob handle.
Can you point out the C handle? Which is a C handle there?
The C handle is what opens the oven door.
Okay, so that's the handle on the oven door, and that's kind of curves around, so it's a loose C.
Correct.
And the same thing on the bottom drawer of the oven is also a
Right.
C handle.
I was just going to mention that. Yes, that's a C type handle. That again is a lot easier on your joints than another type of handle would be. Okay. Again, if you have a bursitis, a shoulder problem, you have trouble reaching things up high, you can bring things down to you. So here's an example of a pull down cabinet. This is bringing things towards you. If you have had a shoulder injury or shoulder surgery, or any type of thing that makes it difficult, maybe you're shorter, makes it difficult for you to reach the things that you need to reach. Again, this is an option. And you will see what we call the D handles on the cabinetry and the C handles. There are various, as I said, there are just so many different options out there. So you need to think about what is the safest one for me, even though it's pretty. Is that the right one for how I'm going to use it? And on the right are the shelving, that drawers that pull all the way out. So if you have trouble bending over and you can't crawl into that, that's the way mine are. I almost have to crawl into my cabinet to see what's in the back. Being able to pull those out to you. And that's true of almost any drawer in your home, that it pulls out to you. It pulls all the way out. So you can reach to the back of the drawer without having to bend over all the way from the waist to be able to reach what's at the back of the drawer.
The girl has her left hand on the bar. Is that a handle or just a grab bar to pull down that piece?
Whoops. One more.
The left
yeah.
hand on the
Right.
on the
That's how she would pull that down. Correct. Okay, next slide. Good question, Jamie. So I thought this pull-out step was genius. I never would have thought of that. Never ever. If you're shorter and you need access to the appliance, being able to be up higher so that you have more leverage to do whatever it is you need to do on that appliance, whether it's a stove or maybe a cooktop, that gives you a better advantage, a safer advantage. Again, getting on and off of this, though, could be a challenge for some people. If you've got knee issues, hip issues, that could be a challenge. So again, it's an option to consider, just depending on your personal circumstances. On the right, this is a raised dishwasher. So you're bringing the dishes up to you instead of having to bend over to load the dishwasher. You're trying to bring things up to your space, to where it's comfortable for you, so that you don't have to go to the appliance. Next slide, please. This is an example of a kitchen with a lot of different amenities. You will see the controls in front of the cooktop, the easy to reach wall storage. The dishwasher is raised. And in this case, multiple height work surfaces. A lot of older adults don't like to stand when they're preparing food. They prefer to sit. So if there is a lower workspace, that can be very helpful. Also, if you have a seated user on a wheelchair, or if you have someone who's in a walker and can't stand for long periods of time, having a different height work surface can be very, very, very helpful. And again, you'll see the type of hardware. There's pull-out storage. And the raised toe kick is really helpful for people in wheelchairs. A lot of times the older homes don't have this. So it makes it very difficult.
What's the difference between that and that step that came out for the lady?
I don't understand your question.
Well, we had one where the lady
step
was in front of the
Okay.
stove or whatever, and she had a step that came out, I think, from underneath it, and she
Okay.
was able to step on that. Is this
Right.
the same thing, or is this something
No.
different?
The raised toe kick means that the cabinetry has been installed at a height that is higher than normal. So most
Okay.
normal cabinets might be installed with maybe a 3 to 4, maybe 5-inch space from the floor to the bottom of the cabinet. This is much higher, giving someone who has like a seated user with the feet in their wheelchair, the opportunity to get closer to that cabinet.
Okay, so you can pull up closer because you've got more space down there.
Right. Toe
Okay,
kick
great.
means just exactly that, where the toes are going to kick the cabinetry. So that if
Okay.
you have an older home that has lower cabinetry, it can be a little more difficult for people who are seated in wheelchairs. Or oftentimes you've got people who love to push themselves around in their walkers and they're seated. So this would be the same thing for them as well.
One of the local nursing homes has tables in its cafeteria that are probably 50 years old, and I don't think they're made anymore. And they kept them when they remodeled. But the tables come down from the ceiling, and so there's a pole in the middle of the table. It extends down from the ceiling. You've got a pole in the middle of the table. It's circular, and there is no structure under the table to
Oh my
obstruct
goodness.
your wheelchair or your legs or anything like that. It's so cool, but it's apparently not fashionable because they had to take their old tables from the 1960s and port them into the new structure when they redid it.
I've never heard of that before. That's very, very interesting. That's too bad that they had to remove them.
Yeah, I'll show you where it is.
Okay, next slide. So think about creating your own memory aids. Sometimes we're moving around the house. I don't know about you, but I often wish I could put some kind of beeping device on my keys because or my phone, I end up leaving them in different places. So for instance, this glass, I do this myself. If I have to water my plants, I walk right by them. I, for some reason, don't even think, oh gosh, I've got to water them. But if I set a glass out with water in it, or just the glass, it's a memory aid to me. Oh yeah, I was going to water my flowers. Or if you have to go downstairs, instead of going downstairs multiple times, create a list of things you need to retrieve or take down, or maybe a task you need to do while you're downstairs, so that you're not going up and down the stairs. Obviously, we would prefer that you lived in a ranch home where there were no stairs, but that's not a lot of options for people. So we try and work around them and create ways to keep ourselves safe. Say, for
Jill?
instance, yep,
There is a comment that a standard toe kick is 4 inches high. Wheelchair users need 9 inches of height. The clearance below the cabinet, the same minimum height under toilet, the stall partitions. That's the ADA part. That's the ADA height for toe kicks.
yes,
A
that
wheelchair.
is correct. And that, I believe, came from Mr. Murphy. So
Yes.
I do appreciate that. And he is correct. He's an architect. He's a good friend, an absolutely phenomenal person. So I do respect his comment on this, and I thank him for it. The toilet tissue, paper towel, same thing. I keep mine in the basement. So rather than going up and down and up and down and up and down, I may put them on a list, or I may put the empty holder there, something that will remind me, oh yeah, when you're going to the basement, remember to get this. Next slide, please. Creating safe spaces and creating a secure home as you grow older is really, really important. I can't stress enough, our lives change, our homes don't. So we need to look at things like, are we shuffling more? Is our eyesight changing? Is our hearing changing? Is our health changing? Do we have some conditions now that we need to maybe think a little more carefully about as far as safety in our home? You can remain in your home, but to do so safely may mean you need to make some changes. You may need to put in a ramp. You may need to put in a stair lift. You may need to do something to your home that will make it a lot safer for you. So it's really important that as we grow older, we look at our home in a whole new set of eyes, so that we're looking at it from our needs, our abilities, our health, the things that may have changed over the years. And as I've said, I've gotten the comments so many times, I never thought of that. So the whole idea here was to provide you with some information, get you thinking, maybe have you walk around your house and see if there are things that you could change in your house, such as sharp corners on your cabinetry or on your coffee table or in your bathroom cabinetry that you might hit your head on that could cause a dangerous injury. Different kind of flooring, the wrong type of flooring for that particular room. Maybe your carpet has too high a pile and it's difficult to navigate. If you've come home from the hospital in a walker and you have a high pile carpet, that's difficult to navigate, as it is with a wheelchair. So think about how your health, your abilities, and your lifestyle has changed as you lived in that home. And think about the options that you can do to your home, not you personally, but have someone do for you maybe, to make your home a safer place to live. This is my contact information. Silverspaces.com is where the home safety assessment is. It's accessible to anyone, anywhere, on any device.
You've covered a lot of ground, and as you said, it really gets the brain thinking in terms of all of these ways of staying safe. One of the things that hasn't come to mind that I see or think of is if I'm living home alone in my house and my communication with the outside world, etc., communicative devices and all of that sort of a thing. That would seem to me to be another aspect at some point. It's not the architectural or the house design necessarily, but we're also going to want to be able to communicate with the outside world in case we do have that fall or have some kind of a medical emergency.
Very true. And there's all kinds of them now. There are now motion sensors that can tell when you fall. And there are the pendants, which people should wear around their neck, but I've encountered so many clients that don't wear them. They have them, but they're hanging in the bathroom because they don't want to wear them.
Right.
So, it's what works for you. It may not work for everybody, and it shouldn't
Right.
work for everybody,
Right.
but whatever works for you is what you should be using.
Well, and I'm also struck too, as you go through this, that there are different stages, certainly different stages of life, and there are different stages of aging. And so if I'm trying to minimize going up and down the stairs in terms of safety issues or health issues, joint issues, et cetera, that's one side. I've been stuck at home at times during the pandemic, working from home, and I'm sitting in a chair constantly. And so I'm having to deal with some of those issues. So I have a tendency to do just the opposite. I unstring the tasks. If I go up and down the stairs for one thing, then I may go up and down the stairs for a second thing, and up and down the stairs for a third thing, because I'm trying to use the stairs as an exercise.
Well, there is that. We just don't want you to fall.
Right. So it seems to me that I'm reminded of the adage that people retire from say the Midwest down to Florida, and that's their first retirement, and then when things change, they make their second retirement back home where they have a support structure.
True.
And it's kind of the same thing. I think if we go through the aging process, where are we, and how much are we trying to how much are we dependent upon more higher levels of safety versus less, and that strikes me as we went through your presentation as well.
Let me go back to your example about the stairs.
Yeah.
Okay. I would ask you, do you have railings on both sides?
No, I don't. I need them.
Okay. Are the treads secure?
It's carpeting.
Could be dangerous, but
Yeah, it is dangerous.
Is it well lit?
Yeah.
Is there a light switch at the top and at the bottom?
Yes.
Okay. Those are the things that we're looking for, just a few of them.
Okay.
You bring up a good point. I mean, yes, I agree. Going up and down the stairs is good exercise as long as the environment you're doing it in is
It's
safe.
safe.
We had a neighbor that she wanted to stay in her home as long as she could. Laundry was downstairs. It was not an option of moving it upstairs, but she had figured out a method. Everything that needed to go downstairs was lined up in laundry baskets at the top along the wall out of the way. And everything that needed to come up was lined up downstairs. And she had a neighbor boy that came and took the garbage out each week, and he did the lawn and things like that for her. So when he was there, he would run everything up and down the stairs, and she never, ever carried anything as she went up and down the stairs. And that allowed her to stay in that house a few more years.
And that's another example of what can we do to stay safe. That wasn't a hard option. I mean, she used what was locally available to her. And that's a perfect example of, I can't do this anymore, but what can I do to accomplish the same task and still remain in my home?
Yes.
Now, there are numerous agencies in every city that can give you advice, can connect you to modification professionals, can connect you to just about anything that you need. Knowing what you need is the first thing. Recognizing and acknowledging you need it, which seems to be the harder part as we get older, because nobody likes the word age any more than I do. But acknowledging, okay,
Right.
I may need some help doing this. Probably shouldn't go up the ladder to change the curtains. Can I find someone to do this for me? Do I have a relative? Do I have a teenager? Think about what you do before you do it so you don't have an injury.
Stay off the roof.
That's a given.
Yeah. I can think of over the last 30, 40 years, I can think of at least a couple of clients who have killed themselves taking things up and down the basement stairs from the fall on the stairs. And I can think of one client whose wife was in a nursing home who went to see her every day. And he kind of disappeared from the radar for a short period of time. And when I was able to catch up with him, we found that he had washed the curtains above the kitchen table and had gotten up on the kitchen table to put the curtains back up and had fallen and broken something. And so he was in the same nursing home his wife was, except she was thriving and he wasn't. So we had to bring him home temporarily with 24/7 care. He didn't have a lot of money, but we temporized, and then he had to go move to assisted living because we could no longer keep him at home. So, and he had been pretty spry before that.
This is part of the reason I'm so passionate about aging in place, because we just need to look at our lives now. Where is our health now? Where are our abilities now? And admit to ourselves when we may need to find some option or some changes. They can be as simple as the change in a faucet and the handles in your kitchen, or they can mean, a walk-in shower or a ramp. They can mean a whole lot of different things. But the whole idea is acknowledging the fact that we aren't as young as we used to be. Our home stayed the same as when we bought it. So maybe we need to take a look at that environment we're living in, and make sure it fits our lifestyle and our needs.
I absolutely agree. It seems to be that acknowledgement is that first step, and it is the gateway to mindful thinking. If we have acknowledged the issues or limitations we have, then we can mindfully approach the issue of how do I stay home? How do I make the home a safe place, et cetera, et cetera. And if we're in denial, we aren't mindful of those things and we just overlook them. And as you say, oh, I never thought about that. It can be ignorance, but it can also be denial.
Well, and if you have 2 or more people living in the same home, that can make it a lot more difficult too, because different people have different needs. So you have to kind of make negotiations or changes that will fit everyone's needs and not just one person's.
That's a really interesting point, because my first inclination is if you have 2 people living in the house, they're kind of like bookends, and what one can't do, the other one can help with, and they keep each other safe. But the point I'm hearing you make is they both have needs, and their needs may be different. It may not be complementary. They may be more differential, or whatever you want to say. They may be conflicting. And so you're really having to accommodate 2 sets of needs rather than one. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, our newsletter that's coming out this month is titled "My Roommate is My Dad." And it's titled that way because a lot more adults, older adults, are living with their children. And this is not only in the United States. Japan and China have one of the deepest cultures for keeping family units together and taking care of their older adults. They are very dedicated to that. China is starting to run into problems now because so many of their younger people have moved away from the cities where their parents are to go to the city where there are more jobs. So that's creating some issues. But the situations are now arising more where the adults are moving in with their adult children. So there again, now you're serving different people's needs.
Yeah, that's a real issue, isn't it? I thank you for that. I hadn't really thought of it as cumulative need. I had thought of it as, and it can be, one person with the needs meets the others. We call them bookends. And what one person supports where the other one needs it, but it doesn't always happen that way. And I think that's the point that I'm hearing you make, and it's a significant one.
And it's one of the things that we need to think about long-term. And I think you and I are going to have some of these discussions in the future about determining whether or not remaining in our home is the right choice for us.
Yeah. I was reminded of some examples that weren't necessarily in the home, but they really reinforced some of the things that you were saying. Gail and I have friends who are probably about our age, and the husband has essentially gone deaf. He's had cochlear implants, but his hearing is at single digit percentages. And they were traveling in a hotel, and they were in the room. The wife was in the shower, and he was sitting in the room, and the fire alarms went off, and neither one of them heard them. And so it was later that the staff came upon them and were pretty upset with them that they hadn't evacuated. And yet it can happen, as you say, that you don't hear. In this case, the wife was hearing enabled, but she was in the shower and he was essentially deaf. And so they missed it, and it's easily done.
I had clients who the gentleman had multiple sclerosis, and they were both in their 70s, lived in a condo in an apartment building. So they had no weather warning. I asked her, can you hear the sirens? And she said, kind of. And I said, that's not good enough. Do you realize if you're in bed, you have to get your husband out of his bed, into his wheelchair, down the hall, around the corner, down the elevator, into the basement, because you have no other place of safety planned and you have no further warning. And she just looked at me in horror. And again, I never thought of that. So, it's trying to adapt your lifestyle and your environment to the way things in your health and everything else has changed. And not only you, but maybe someone else that is living with you.
Yeah, that's for sure. Another note I made to myself as you were going through the skull protector. I've never really, I'm totally unfamiliar with that. So, and I've been connected with elder care issues for 40 years. So that has escaped me. How does that work? Is there some kind of an internal thermometer or something that?
It literally screws onto the end of a faucet, whether it's the shower, the tub, the sink. It literally screws onto the end of it. It's got threads. So I had to buy mine off the internet. I couldn't locally source it. But it literally just screws onto the end of a faucet. It's such a simple thing. And especially, I would think, for families with young children who love to pull chairs up to, the sink, and they want access to it and they don't know what hot is hot. You get a person with dementia. They don't know what hot is. So having the ability to put that on the end of a faucet so that they don't accidentally get burned can be crucial.
I agree. I may be a little far afield here. I'm wondering, do you happen to know how they work? I mean, are they digital with like an implanted thermostat, or are they like different alloys that expand at different rates, and that at a certain point it physically shuts the thing off? How do they work?
When I first came across them, probably about 6 years ago, there was only one on the market. And now there are many. So I'm sure they work differently.
Different ways. Yeah. Okay. That's about how much do they run? Any idea?
I think the one I got was around between 18 and 28, something like that.
Oh, well, that's pretty inexpensive.
It's only about an inch long.
Does it impair ability to get at the stream of water or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Now, having said that, it's not one of the kinds that you could put on if you're looking for a spray at the end of it.
Okay. It's flow.
As far as I know. Now, things change so rapidly.
They do.
Kohler, some of the larger plumbing companies have caught on to this aging in place space, and they are now coming out with products all the time. And it's very difficult for me to stay on top of everything that they come out with. So the last one that I looked at was only for a solid stream. It wasn't one you could put on that you could then attach a spray to. I'm not saying they're not available now. It's just the last time that I looked, I didn't see one.
Okay. Couple of things too. So when you talked about memory aids, you went beyond what we might ordinarily think of, well, I keep a little list on the kitchen table of, I want to do this and that and whatever today, put this there, this and there. So you're using some creative, almost props in order to do some of that. Like you mentioned, the glass and the little signals that you have with something like that. Do you find those are more effective than, say, like paper notes, or do you find that those are just an alternative to that somebody might like that better and somebody might like notes better?
I think whatever works for that person. I know when I am leaving and I have to go somewhere, I will literally put my purse and everything by my door, because I'm afraid if I have to walk around the house and gather those things together before I leave, I will forget something, and I invariably do. So I try and put everything together so that when I'm ready to go out the door, everything is right there. And I'm not looking for my keys and looking for my purse and trying to find the piece of paper I was supposed to take with me and the item I was going to return. And then I try and I literally keep a list of places I have to stop if I'm going to do tasks. So I keep the gas mileage down. So I may be going to 3 places to return things, but I'll forget where I'm going to go if I don't make a list of where I'm going to go. And then I also have to set those things out to take with me. So
kind of like going to the grocery store and what items do I need? And I'm not just relying on my short-term memory for that.
And some people, I used to forget my cell phone all the time. So I put a picture of a cell phone on my back door. So when I left the house, I would see the cell phone and remember to take it. It didn't work. I continued to leave the house without my cell phone. So that memory aid apparently was not a good one for me. And I had to figure out a different way to remember to take my cell phone, because it's usually sitting next to my desk or, like everybody else, your favorite chair or something. So that memory aid did not work for me, and I had to come up with something different. So again, what works for you? What's best for you? What works more often than not for you? And if it's not working, obviously don't.
Something else.
Jill, did you see the note that just went up?
I did not.
We also used a large white on desktop calendar to write down reminders and calendar appointments, and left it leaning up on a cushion across from where my mom would sit, so she'd remember the appointments and upcoming birthdays.
That's genius. Again, if it works, that is wonderful. I mean, the whole idea is adapting everything to what works for you. That's so important. And sometimes we don't even try. Oh, I don't need to do that. Oh, I'll remember that, and then it gets worse and worse. And then we get frustrated with ourselves. Oh, I was going to do this and I forgot. So again, that's a wonderful idea. Very wonderful idea. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you again, Jill, and thank you all for joining us today. And we wish you a good day, and we look forward to seeing you folks later. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.